Coming to you from high atop their elite fortress of moral superiority, here are your protein-deficient hosts, Bob and Jenna.
Hey, Vegan Freaks, it's Jenna.
And Bob.
And we're here for show 99, in case you couldn't get that from the intro.
I like the part where she talks about UFOs. Oh, that was great.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So, here we are. Jenna has not killed me yet.
No, not yet. Almost.
Before the beginning of the show, I think Jenna was ready to reach across the little podcasting studio we have here and put her hands around my throat and squeeze. So
we're just trying to decide how to integrate the 99 Red Balloon song, and I apparently weren't communicating correctly.
We were not communicating well. I couldn't understand if you want to do theme intro, clip, theme intro. We were like, we just were not communicating in the same language. But it's okay, because what makes our relationship strong? The fact that we can have disagreements and still be perfectly fine.
Of course.
Are we not?
Yeah.
You still love me, right?
Of course.
You don't want to kill me, do you?
No.
Okay, good. So, you might want to kill me later. I don't know. No. It was nothing big. But anyway, so our 99th show, 99. Can you believe we've done 99 of these things?
Mm-mm.
Holy shit. I remember when we started to do the podcast, you were like, well, we'll do one or two. I don't want... Go ahead.
3 years later.
Yeah, we'll do one or two. And I don't want to do more than 15 minutes, as I recall what you were saying. So you reacted this way to many things.
I know.
Like the podcast.
I don't deal well with change. New things.
You do, actually.
Well, sometimes.
I think you do. Well, anyway, here we are for show 99. We've got our 100th show coming up for the next show whenever we do manage to do that. So for today's show...
You okay? You have to sneeze?
Yeah. I'm trying to fight the sneeze. Sorry, it just snuck up on me all of a sudden.
I looked down for a second. You stopped talking. I was like, what?
I'm really sorry. I just didn't want to I think I'm able to stop it. I didn't want to sneeze into the microphone.
No, that would be loud.
It would be loud, and it's not good for your microphones, and
No.
Whatever. Anyway, so I apologize. On today's show, we're going to talk about a couple different articles. We've got a couple voicemails for you, and we've got a special guest on the show.
Yes.
We're joined by Mark Love today on the show. Later on, we'll do that in the second half of the show.
Yeah, he's going to be talking about fitness and veganism and how the two can go together.
Yeah, so we're thinking we might have Mark on occasion on the show to talk about these kinds of things. But we'll talk about Mark. We'll talk with Mark in the second half of the show.
Okay.
To begin the show, though, we've got a news article that a bunch of you had sent us that is really kind of disgusting in a sense, Mm-hmm. The article, the one that we received is from Newsweek, and it's called "A Dog for a Day," and it's about lawmakers who are contemplating taking action against "quote-unquote" pet rental companies. So before we get into this, one thing you got to remember is that animals are essentially property, right? Mm-hmm. So under the law, right now there's no reason why you couldn't rent a pet. Let me describe to you how this all works. The article begins by saying, wouldn't it be great to have all the fun and companionship of a pet without the long-term responsibility? In early 2007, Marlena Cervantes founded Flex Pets, a pet-sharing service that allows members to rent out dogs for a few hours or days at a time. Since then, the small business, the first of its kind in the U.S., has expanded rapidly from San Diego and opened branches in Los Angeles, Manhattan, and most recently in London. The company's website lists plans to open soon in San Francisco, Boston, Washington, D.C., and Paris, France, of course. But in recent weeks, lawmakers have begun taking steps to ban a practice critics call emotionally harmful to the animals. Since its founding, Flex Pets has focused on cities targeting urban professionals or assholes who would like to spend time with a dog but can't commit to full-time ownership. My lifestyle is not really conducive to taking care of a dog, says Flex Pets member Dr. Fang Yang Fu, a Manhattan neurologist who works 12-hour days and lives in a pet-free building. Since last October, Fu has been paying to spend time with Sandman, a Pomeranian-American Esco mix that he rents from Flex Pets about once a month. The membership costs him $99.95 a month plus $45 per day for quote-unquote doggy time. Under the Flex Pets membership system, members could select the dog of their choice. And, sorry, I heard something funny. Anyway, could select the dog of their choice and spend the time with the dog as they wish. Chris Haddock's Manhattan Flex Pets facilitator says that all potential customers must go through screening and orientation, a process that can take up to a month to ensure the dog's safety. He says that all Flex Pets dogs live in cage-free facilities with a primary caregiver and that the company rescues dogs that would have otherwise been worse off in shelters or euthanized. His branch operates out of the West Nose Doggy Gym on East 13th Street and has had about 6 dogs available since it opened in October. Flex Pets likes to maintain a ratio of 1 dog to every 5 members. Haddock says that the model has worked out well for the clientele and the dogs, and that it provides an alternative for people who are aware that they're just not ready for animal care 24/7. Our members take ownership responsibility seriously. So basically, the article goes on to say that Flex Pets was heralded as the zip car for animal lovers. All of this, of course, has been met with some potential legislative action to prohibit this, and some people say that really one representative says that the business model promotes the idea of quote-unquote disposable pets. And let's see, PETA agrees, oddly enough. I'm surprised.
I am too.
But I don't know. Anyway, you never know where PETA's going to end up.
Not really.
Are there any naked ladies involved? No. Well, then maybe they're down with it, or not. I'm surprised there are no naked ladies involved for them to be down with it. Sure. I guess what I'm trying to say. So, what PETA does say actually is the business exists to make money at the psychological expense of the animal. Wow, that's actually something I agree with from PETA. You can all hear me say that. There's something I agree with that PETA said, but I'm not going to make it a habit or anything. So I think there's a really interesting point here is that, look, these are living beings that are being rented out. I mean, how much clearer can it get that animals are property in this situation, and that attacking the animal, the property status of animals is the way to prevent these kinds of things.
I mean, you wouldn't do this with your kids. You don't rent out kids.
Well, I was just going to say that. Wouldn't it be cool if we had a kid rental service? Well, I would. I guess it's called babysitting for your in-laws, right?
Yeah, but you're not paying.
You're getting paid usually, right?
Yeah.
No, I kind of like kids, but I don't like the long-term ownership. And I've got a career. I don't have the time to have a kid. And I want to rent one, so I can go rent a kid. I'm surprised Whole Foods hasn't started renting third world children yet. Actually, they probably would end up slaughtering them and selling them in the little glass case in the back of the store. Free range third world children for your consumption. So it's good to see that there have been some actions taken against the company, or people actually being upset enough about it. But I mean, again, we see this kind of dual tier of pet ownership, right? This hierarchy of not dual tier of pet ownership, but dual tier of animal status, right? Because we've got dogs and cats who they're getting better treatment than most other animals, right? I mean, people are objecting to this, but very few people legislatively object to the ways in which animals are held as property, right? Right. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it says at the very end of the article that, animals are not DVDs. This isn't, you can't, even though legally they essentially are, because they're both property, they're both things you can rent, apparently. But, there's an obvious difference between a DVD and a dog.
Yeah, my DVDs don't fart. The DVDs we have downstairs don't pass gas when they're laid on the floor. But anyway, an update since then from August 1st. We have a 30-second summary here. Flex Pets, a dog rental company, faced so much resistance from lawmakers and animal activists as its business expanded that it has been forced to shut down in the United States. When Boston officials discovered the plan to open a location in the city, the city council passed an ordinance prohibiting dog rentals. Nice. And one of a trainer said, dogs need stability in their lives, they need long-term commitment, and they need a secure environment. Well, yeah. This trainer, Ray McSoley, called Flex Pets a 4-legged escort service. Watch out, Peter Singer.
But it's nice that they recognize that. I mean, when you think about it, when we just even take our dogs down to visit our family and we have to go away for a few hours, the dogs are together, but Emmy gets all freaked out. We'll go sulk off in the bedroom by herself until we come home. I mean, she gets sad. Yeah. Dogs are a pack, need to be in a pack. Sure. with their people.
It can't be a rental pack.
Exactly. It doesn't work that way.
No, I agree.
So, I mean, if these people want some doggy time, what they should do is volunteer at a shelter.
Volunteer at a shelter, or, look, if we knew people around here who wanted to take our dogs for a walk and I trusted them, I'd let them. But, I don't know. I guess I would.
I don't know.
Somebody you knew
Well, if I was their really good friend.
Yeah, someone who was a friend of yours, and they were like, "Can I just take your
Not
dog?"
some random person from the neighborhood.
Well, no, from our neighborhood, no, definitely not, definitely not. Although Molly would do just fine, probably. The people around
Molly
here
loves
love
everybody.
and the people around here love him.
Yeah.
When we come walking out of the woods and that dog has a log in his mouth, which he usually does, they love it. Like the people around here go crazy because they think it's the funniest thing ever. So, good to see that Flex Pets thing is going out. But I also think it really does. I think in a lot of ways, people are up in arms about it. And I think that's a good thing. But I also think that it shows this kind of dual tier, right? We've got this one set of animals that are pets, and then we've got the other tier of animals that are food. And no one would think about the food animals in that way. Very few people complain about horses being rented for carriage rides around parks in major cities. So I think it shows this two-tiered system that's in place, and dogs and cats are kind of like the royalty of animals in a lot of ways, and they're still treated very poorly. Don't get me wrong, but still, you can see
comparatively.
Are you cold?
My arms are cold. I don't know why. My arms are always. I'm always cold.
You are always cold. You are always cold.
I know. Well, I was downstairs, and it's cold downstairs, and then I came up and just haven't heated up since then.
We always have this the air conditioning heat fight, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a fight. It's that I like it cold generally, and you like it warmer.
Yeah.
So, from what I see on Twitter, this is a common problem.
This is a common thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can follow us on Twitter, by the way.
Yes. Okay, the next article we're going to talk about, sent to us by Noni3234, and it's from a blog. It's just a little short commentary about a study that has been done, and the title is Vegetarian Sausages and Subjectivity. It's kind of interesting little tidbit of information here, and it's simultaneously interesting and annoying, the way the person talks about it. Anyway, it says... It's from scienceblogs.com, by the way. Okay. Do you scoff at those pale tofu dogs in the health food aisles at the supermarket? Are you one of those people who taunt vegans by talking about Big Macs? A new study suggests that you should think about biting your tongue. According to the researchers, how we feel about a sausage, regardless of whether it's soy-based or beef, says more about our personal values than about what the sausage actually tastes like. In fact, most people can't even tell the difference between an ersatz vegan sausage and the real thing. It should be noted, though, that not all vegan products are equally deceptive. A soy hot dog, in contrast, only fooled 37% of subjects, and I'm guessing the soy ice cream fooled nobody. He obviously hasn't tasted soy ice cream now, has he? The clever experiment went like this. A large group of people were given a quote-unquote human values test, which seeks to measure 56 different values: loyalty, ambition, social order, etc. Then the subjects were asked to rate a variety of sausages. People who scored high...
You want to rate my sausage?
Not that kind of sausage. People who scored high on the social authority, they believed it was important to support people in power, tended to label the vegetarian sausage as inferior, even when the vegetarian sausage was actually from a cow. So apparently what they did was give these people this test to score them on these different social values, and then gave them like various sausages to try, and they were labeled, and some of them were labeled incorrectly. So they give them, something labeled veggie sausage was actually not, and something labeled meat sausage was actually the veggie one,
right?
And then, or they did them correctly.
So the people who are more apt to fall into respecting authority were the people that would listen, that would tell me. Explain.
Yeah, they labeled the vegetarian sausage as inferior, even when the vegetarian sausage was actually from a cow. So they were being fooled. So just because it was labeled vegetarian,
right,
they gave it the lower taste. They said it tasted worse. Okay, likewise, people who scored low on social power values tended to score the vegan sausage much higher than the beef sausage, even when they were actually eating meat. Instead of judging the food product on its merits, they ended up preferring the product that more closely conformed to their value system. The scientists also conducted a similar experiment with Pepsi. Sure enough, people who fit the Pepsi demographic, they think that having an exciting life is very important, always preferred Pepsi, even when they were actually drinking a generic cola.
Wait. People who drink Pepsi think having an exciting life is very important?
Apparently.
You should see the people that I see buying Pepsi at the grocery store. These do not look like the people who value an exciting life. They look more like the people who are into watching a lot of television. But anyway.
Right.
which could be an exciting life, depending on how you define
I guess.
quote-unquote exciting life.
So
Anyway.
it just concludes by saying, this research conforms to a growing body of evidence suggesting that our gustatory preferences are an incredibly subjective thing, which is very true.
It is
And it
true.
reminded me of this thing I read in this book called Mindless Eating.
Interesting book.
Yeah, it is. Brian Wensink, PhD.
At Cornell?
He
Well, he's
teaches-
at Cornell,
He teaches
right?
at Cornell.
Yeah.
And basically the whole book is about all these different studies that he did about, connections between your mind and food. So he talks about the soy food industry. And he says, people in the soy foods industry appear mystified why many people won't eat soy foods unless forced to for health reasons. Granted, a good deal has been done to improve the taste of soy, but a lot of residual negative feelings still exist. Given the power of expectations, this is a real problem. The National Soybean Research Center came to the Food and Brand Lab to determine why people avoid soy. A series of in-depth interviews with people over the age of 40 revealed that they generally had bad perceptions about the taste, aftertaste, and texture of soy foods. Some of these were due to earlier experiences with the off-taste soy filler that was used in the school hot lunch program in the 60s and 70s. Still, other perceptions were based on non-soy related events. A number of people mentioned that whenever they heard the word soy, they thought of a 1973 Charlton Heston movie, the guilty pleasure classic Soylent Green.
Awesome. Soylent Green, people.
In this futuristic world, the only food source is a mysterious green substance called Soylent Green. In the closing moments of the movie, Charlton Heston discovers that the source of Soylent Green is reconstituted humans.
Well, thanks for ruining it for us, Dr. Wansink.
As if anybody didn't know that.
Yeah, you never know.
I never know. He stretches his arms skyward, falls to knees, and bellows, Soylent Green is people. Anyway, despite recent improvements in the taste and texture, expectation assimilation would lead us to predict that if people expect a food with soy to taste bad, it will taste bad. But what if that food has no soy in it to begin with? If people simply believe that ingredient is in a food, will that mindlessly influence their taste? Our phantom ingredient studies were conducted in Illinois, the largest grower of soybeans in the United States. For these studies, the wrappers of 155 power bars were modified to say either it contains 10 grams of protein or contains 10 grams of soy protein. The only difference between the two labels was one prominent three-letter word, soy. In reality, there was no soy protein in this power bar. Exactly zero. It was a phantom ingredient. If after eating one of these power bars people believed they tasted soy, they would be mindlessly responding to the power of suggestion. People were given the bars, which were introduced as a new product, and asked to take a look at the package and then to try them. The people who ate the bars with the label contains 10 grams of protein described the bars favorably. They said they were chocolatey, chewy, and tasty. The other people, the ones who had been given the bars with 10 grams of soy protein, were not so positive. Many spit out the bar or excused themselves to get a drink of water. One man passed a piece of gum to his wife so that both could get the taste out of their mouths. When asked what they thought, they claimed that the bars had a bad aftertaste, were chalky, and didn't even taste like chocolate. This was not good news to our soy friends. Attitudes are improving, though, and there's good precedent to think it will just take more time and innovation. And the whole chapter is about, if you name things differently, could be the same exact food, that it suddenly becomes more appealing. So if you have, food that you want people to enjoy, make sure you have... Tell people it's like succulent, or give it some really, really interesting name.
That's why in the restaurants you always get those ridiculously long descriptions of the food.
Exactly.
Over a succulent bed of citrus infused cilantro herb. I don't know.
Exactly. And then if people see that versus, tofu and veggies or something, rather than, a succulent dish of stir-fried, braised things. Oh, no, you found it.
Soylent Green is made out of people.
Listen to me, Hatcher. You gotta tell him Soylent Green is people!
YouTube for the win.
Nice. So, yeah. So, it's interesting.
That is interesting.
How your mind really does play with your perceptions.
And it does that in so many other ways, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has a lot to do with so many other aspects of your life, too. So it makes sense that it would do it with food as well.
Exactly. And which is why we need to show people this, I think, is really important for people to positively show people how to eat and, not say, oh, this is, some random soy product. Have them taste it unless you're worried about allergies and, you need to tell people that there's soy in something. Give it to them, see what they taste, what they think,
I've seen people like, family and friends eat food that is clearly vegan, stuff that we made that's vegan, but we don't call it vegan, right? We don't say, oh, this is vegan cake, or this is vegan salsa, or this is vegan whatever. Mm-hmm. Just feed it to them, and then they eat it and they like it. Mm-hmm. So if you don't really put a lot of, I'm not saying we shouldn't say things are vegan, but
I'm not saying, like suggesting that we need to deceive people.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that either. But what I am saying is that you can feed people stuff and not. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this either exactly. But I think it's important to focus on the positive aspects of food and of veganism and showing people. I guess what I'm trying to say is breaking people's stereotypes.
I think that's what has to be done.
That's where I'm going with this. That's what I'm trying to
get at. Is I'm not saying that you shouldn't say something is or is not vegan necessarily, but I think that in a lot of ways people have these mental blocks about something being called vegan, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's fine to feed them something and not be like, well, this is vegan whatever, because I think a lot of people have a mental block to that. I think you feed them this stuff and you feed it to them over and over again, and eventually they know you're a vegan and they can put it together.
Or you just tell them it's vegan after the fact.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of people, we've heard from a lot of different stories from different people that they bring in baked goods and to their office or something. Someone asks, "Oh, is this a vegan cupcake?" And they don't want to eat it. It's like because they have this block that for some reason it's going to taste horrible.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. But I also don't want to be in a position where I'm saying we should run from the term vegan, because I don't think we should.
No.
I don't really think we should.
No, not at all.
So I don't want people to misunderstand me and let the many nasty emails pour in. But I mean, I don't think we should run from the term, but I also don't think that. Well, I don't know. I think it's worth walking a fine line in some cases. It depends.
Yeah, it all depends on the context, on the situation, etc. And the reason I wanted to mention this is that people have perceptions of vegans that are so twisted.
They are twisted.
And we just need to show it is about abundance. It is about all these great things.
Well, I think it was kind of Joy's point on the last show as well.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
She was talking about a lot of that, and I think she does a lot of the cooking that she does is really about moving in that direction.
Definitely.
As we'll see in her cookbook, which will be coming out before the holidays.
Yes.
So.
All right.
Cool. Are we going to move on to voicemails?
Yes.
Time once again for some vegan freak voicemail. Maybe we'll hear from a hot chick
or a choice male.
Callers make us happy and help us keep our sanity, even if all they wanna do is fucking complain about the shitload of profanity.
Hey guys, love the show, and I was wondering if I could get some advice on what you would do in this situation, because I think a good way to describe it is being subject to discrimination because I was vegan. I was at a restaurant and I ordered a salad because a salad was the only thing that I could make vegan, of course. And it just so happened that the salad I got still had ham in it, and I didn't realize this until I was about halfway through, and I was kind of worried that I had eaten some of the ham, and so I told the waitress, "Can I please have a new salad, because this is not what I ordered, and I do not eat ham." And I was informed that unless I was having an allergic reaction or I had a religious reason for not eating ham, I could get a new salad, but I would be charged for it. They wouldn't give me another free meal. And so, I'm sure I could have just been a bitch about it and gotten a free meal. But I didn't want to turn into that, because I think, that may turn people off from veganism. And so I was wondering if you had any advice on how to handle situations like that, where you're like being discriminated against, but you don't want to turn people off from veganism by being a jerk about it. Love the show. Keep it up. Thanks.
Well, there's one thing, there's being a jerk, and then there's another thing, is getting what is rightfully owed to you. A lot of people think that they have to, like, going into a restaurant and actually demanding what, things that they want makes them suddenly an asshole, and that's not the case. I mean, you don't have to be mean. If you explain things, or ask nicely, a lot of times you can still get what you want. So, by not demanding what you want, I think it actually makes it worse.
And this sounds like a pretty shitty place.
Yeah, it does.
first off, it's a matter of them not fulfilling what you asked for, right? I mean, you asked for a particular thing and they did not bring you that particular thing. You did not realize that they did not bring you that particular thing. Therefore, as a customer, I think you have a right to legitimately complain to them.
Exactly. They made the mistake.
And if I were in that situation, I would be very pissed. Very pissed. Because I don't want to eat all that lettuce that has been touched by ham. That's disgusting. You know, I don't want to do that. So I would most certainly send it back. I would tell them I'm not paying for it in any situation. And I would demand something different. Or I'd get up and leave. And, you know, I don't think that makes vegans look picky. I think, or I would tell them, fine, I'm allergic. Or fine, I'm Jewish.
Oh, I'm having a really horrible allergic reaction. And if you don't get me a new salad, I'm going to sue you.
Yeah. Well,
no, you
know.
don't have to go that far, you know, obviously. But it's like ridiculous.
Well, it could be the point where it's like, fine, I'm allergic.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if that's what it is, fine, I'm allergic. And that's what I would do. I mean, or I would refuse to pay for it. I mean, I think that's ridiculous. I don't think there's... Look, I mean, in a situation like that, people already are not being accommodating. It's a fucking salad. You know, how much does a fucking salad cost a restaurant to produce? $1? $2? You're probably paying $7 or $8 for it. It's a salad. They're just doing it on principle to be fucking assholes. If that's the case, fuck them. They should really put ahead of that profit margin. I mean, they should be smart enough to recognize that whatever they're going to lose in that salad is going to result in a lost customer. If they don't want you as a customer, fuck them. Move on, find somebody who will deal with you. And that's the way I feel. I don't think that that's too haughty. I just think it's like, you know what? If you were Jewish and you went there and they fed you pork, you wouldn't go back there again. If it was if you were Muslim and they went there and fed you pork, you wouldn't go back again. I just think it's, I don't know. To me, it's like, it's not a matter of being an asshole. It's just a matter of, this place isn't going to accommodate me. Fuck them.
Exactly. I mean, they already have, it's obviously that they already have a bad perception of vegans, or else they would have accommodated you. So it doesn't matter. You're not going to look like an asshole. You're going to look like a customer who's demanding what a customer should get.
Well, having worked in retail, I can tell you that customer and asshole, that's a Venn diagram with a lot of overlap in a lot of cases. I'm kidding. Sometimes. No, I think I would have. I've not been in that situation myself, you know. But I don't think it's something I would have paid for. In all honesty.
No, I wouldn't. No, I mean,
I wouldn't have.
I mean, we always say in our book that meek vegans suffer, and this usually refers to situations like restaurants where you can get walked on easily.
I think so.
So.
Yeah, I think so too. There was a restaurant around here that we went to that I don't go to anymore. When we ordered something vegan from the kitchen, they were kind of hemming and hawing and dragging their feet. And so they finally brought something vegan for us, and it was vegan, but it was bland as hell. It was a rice bowl, but it was really just some boiled rice and a few vegetables. It was really bad.
Yeah.
By the way, the restaurant's called Maxfield's, if you're ever in Potsdam, New York, and it sucks my balls. Anyway, we went there, and they gave us this rice bowl. It was really bad. And so I asked the waitress very nicely, I said, "Can I have a little soy sauce, please?" She said, "Okay." And she went to the kitchen, and she came back. And she said, "The chef wants to know why you want soy sauce. He thinks that your dish is seasoned just fine." And you should have seen me. I mean, I was fucking incredulous. Like, the chef wants to know why I want soy sauce? I want soy sauce because the food he produced is bland as hell and tastes like nothing. I'm trying to make a bad situation a little better here. Help me out. So that was the last time I ever went there, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so when you have bad service or anything, you know, we don't go back or anything. When you get good service, it's also really important to let this, you know, the wait staff and the people working there that it was fantastic and thank you.
Absolutely. And another restaurant we go to, who ironically, not really ironically, but the restaurant is owned by
the same people.
By the same people. But we go to another restaurant where they are really good to us.
Yeah.
Every time we go in, the wait staff, they know us. They know what we like to order. They know what we like to eat. They're very attentive to our needs. They have never once given us an issue.
Never.
So,
like, not even a funny look.
Nothing. No ridicule, no rolled eyes, no bullshit. They just do it. And I tip exceedingly well. And I think that's why we always get what we want.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, it's a customer service thing. And I think that, I just think there are a lot of assholes out there.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, if people are going to treat you like shit, fuck it. Move on. Go to another place.
Hey, Bob and Jenna. I'm Ana Lucia from Chicago. I've been a vegan for about 4 months now. I was a vegetarian since I was 12, so like 6 years, until I realized that being a vegetarian was a total cop-out. So, yeah, I'm calling because I don't really know any other vegans, so I'm calling to whine to you guys. Because I'm just really frustrated with my mom. Because, family, you know. And so I tripped this morning over something, and I hurt my ankle. And I was telling...
I thought I tripped this... You said I tripped this morning, and I'm thinking drugs. Because there was a pause there. Right. I thought, wow, this is an awfully straightforward telephone call to be receiving. What were you tripping on? But apparently you just stumbled.
My mom about it, because she asked me why I was limping. And she's like, oh, that's because you're a vegan. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What kind of logic is that? And she's like, it's because it like makes your bones brittle because you have like a vitamin deficiency. I don't know. She was going on about this. I like wanted to kill her. Veganism does not make you trip. There was something like on the floor, and I tripped over it. Like what kind of? It's just really frustrating, and I'm just really sick of people being like, oh, you know that you should probably read about vitamin stuff and that's like health stuff. Because before I was a vegan, I never read about health stuff. And I honestly know about like 1,000,000 times more about being healthy now that I became a vegan. And yeah, sorry, thank you for letting me rant. Oh, and also, highlight of my day, somebody told me about the most amazing place, this like vegan bakery, because they heard I was a vegan. And it's called the Bleeding Heart Bakery in Chicago, and I went in, and, like, they're not completely vegan, but, like, a lot of their stuff is vegan, and they're awesome and delicious and amazing and totally not healthy, but, like, well, maybe they are, but just they're glorious. And, yeah, that's about it. I really love you guys. Keep being awesome. Okay, bye-bye.
Well, thanks for calling. I don't know. There are plenty of vegans in Chicago.
Yeah, there are.
And there's plenty of vegan places in Chicago. So just a matter of kind of going to a couple of those places and trying to see if you can meet people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but go ahead.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh. But you're right. No, I mean, I think vegans, probably not, but I would think that vegans as a segment of the population know more about nutrition than perhaps non-vegans, only because that vegans tend to think about what they eat more.
I think so.
Because you're really paying attention to what you eat. It doesn't mean you're going to eat healthier.
No, of course not.
But at the same time, you know more about what actually goes into your food because you're reading labels.
Good point. Good point.
And, you're at least aware of the ingredient list somewhat.
Sure.
And you may have even read up on a few things to make sure you're getting all your vitamins and that kind of things. So it is funny that you're at least more aware of what is in food, I think.
Well, the thing, too, is that you can be a malnourished vegan, you can be a malnourished omnivore. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of omnivores or who eat all kinds of ridiculously shitty food, and they're lacking vital nutrients in their diet. Just as you can be a vegan and not eat a variety of things and also lack vital nutrients in your diet. So I think you can go either direction with that. Is veganism intrinsically less healthy? I don't think it is in any real way. And often it just takes time to prove to people that, okay, I'm a vegan, but that doesn't mean that I'm a weakling. It doesn't mean that my bones are brittle. It doesn't mean that I'm tripping all the time because my bones are brittle. It doesn't mean any number of things. I mean, and I've dealt with this in the past when I was teaching, when I've had students say to me, raise their hand, go, look, I have to run half an hour a day. I can't be a vegan. I'm like, hello, I run half an hour or more a day and I'm a vegan.
Yeah,
I can do it. You can do it. You're 20 years old. I'm 30. How old am I?
6.
That's how old I am. How old am I? I don't even know. What? How old am I? There we go. See, I've forgotten how old I am. I'm 36. So if I'm 36 and I can do it, come on.
Exactly. Well, it's funny because whenever you talk to an Omni who's skeptical, they suddenly become a nutrition expert.
Oh, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Suddenly they know everything that's good for you and bad for you.
Of course.
So, yeah.
It's ridiculousness. Ridiculousness. I don't know. I got my hair cut the other day, and they actually had to trim my eyebrows again.
Yep.
What? What? Okay. So, congratulations on going vegan. Glad you like the show. Try not to be so klutzy around omnivores.
Hi, Bob and Jenna. It's Belinda here, or Bin74 from the forums, calling from Catherine in the Northern Territory in Australia. I just firstly want to say a huge thank you to the both of you for helping keep me sane in this vegan journey. I was so excited to get your personal little note in the mail along with the button and bumper sticker. I don't know any vegans in real life, so handwriting was just that little bit more real than the internet and much appreciated. I find it kind of amusing that it takes a couple of self-professed freaks to keep me sane, but I guess that's the nature of this omnicentric world we live in.
Hell yeah.
I got excited last week at a friend's place as her mother was over and was telling me how she's vegetarian, but she used to be vegan. She just occasionally has a little bit of dairy every now and then. Not vegan, I know, but you have to take what you can get in a place like this, so I was still happy as we were sharing stories about difficulties ordering food sometimes. So I shared with her about your book that I've just finished and have thoroughly enjoyed, incidentally, and about the fact that fish is not a vegetable. Well, my heart just sank when she then said, "Oh, I eat fish on occasion."
Oh.
I just didn't know what to say to her after that. I also am married to an Omni who resents the fact that I gave our 5-year-old son tofu when he loved it. He also thought it was amusing on our recent family holiday to joke about the native turkeys we saw and how they'd make him a nice Christmas dinner. I really do appreciate your podcast and your forums for helping me to remember that while I may be a freak, I'm not alone. Keep doing what you do. You guys are awesome.
Well, thank you, Belinda.
Thanks.
That's so
It was
nice.
such a lovely voicemail.
It was. And I'm sorry that you're surrounded by people who frustrate you in one way or another. That's annoying to do that. But there's so many vegan freak listeners in Australia. Come on.
I guess just not in the part of Australia that she's in.
Yeah, I know. I want to go to Australia.
Me too.
Yeah. We were just saying earlier how we need a vacation.
We do. That's a long way to travel for one.
It is. It really is. But hey, whatever. There are a million.
Someday we will go there.
Judging by watching the Discovery Channel, there are a million different ways you can die.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah. So, but I'm really glad that you find some I don't know, identification or solace in the show, and that we can provide that for you. And I'm sorry to hear that you have to put up with people around you that are frustrating. But I think in time, if you've just become vegan, or if you've not been vegan long, or you're just kind of getting around to letting people know you're vegan, in time I think it gets easier. At first, this is the hard part. And then once you do it for a while, it just becomes second nature for you and second nature for the people around you.
It does.
Either that, or I think we have very understanding families in general. So maybe that's what makes it easy for us. But
true.
Yeah, I think that it'll work its way out.
Well, and like you said, you're not alone. There are a lot of us freakies out here.
There are indeed. And I've seen you around the forums. So you can find some virtual company there.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Jenna. This is Leanne calling you guys back to see what's going on. I came across another book at the store. It really kind of made my stomach turn when I saw it. It's called Eat What You Want and Die Like a Man by Stephen H. Graham.
Eat what you want and die like a man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A cookbook, and it's labeled the world's most unhealthy cookbook, like it says on the front of the cover. And it's got a picture of him, and he's gnawing on this huge bone, and you can tell he's really overweight, and it's kind of sad. And the overview of the book says, "Eat healthy and live to be 100? Screw that. Why choke down bland, mushy steamed vegetables and brown rice when there is so much fat-laden, calorie-rich, heart-bursting cuisine out there to be savored? Because you want to live, so you can spend your golden years wandering aimlessly around Florida shopping malls and eating dinner at 2 in the afternoon?
Huh?
So you rotten kids can plop you in some hellhole of a nursing home the minute you forget what day it is?
What?
Go ahead, triple your cholesterol and triglyceride counts, and clog those arteries. You'll never get out of this world alive, so enjoy life while you can. Here are the most unhealthy triple bypass recipes sure to satisfy the most insatiable cholesterol craving. Instead of steamed tofu, try lard-oozing Kaha China roasted hog or pizzeria-styled baked ziti with sausage and mozzarella. Follow up with a decadent dessert of deep-fried Twinkies or ice cream lasagna. You'll die quicker, but with a smile on your face." And this douche also has another book. He has other books. One of them is called The Good, the Spam, and the Ugly.
Oh, boy.
And there's another one called Keep Chewing Until It Stops Kicking, Finding Your Inner Caveman. stuff like this really kind of makes me mad because not only do people actually buy this shit, but it just shows that much that they really don't care what they put in their body. And not only are they risking innocent animals to do it, they're also causing themselves a lifetime of probably having some serious health problems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really sad. Somebody actually came in and asked me for this book, and they're like, "Oh man, there's some really good stuff in here. You should check that out." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, well, no, thank you. No, thank you very much." Yeah, it makes me sad. I come across a lot of this stuff at the store, so I figured I'd just like lay it out there. So not only does this guy have gluttonous license pigs, he's also trying to get other people to do the same shit, which they probably will because people just want to do what other people are doing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It pissed me off. All right, bye.
All right, sorry for the dog bark there.
Yeah.
I don't know what you saw outside, but there you go.
Anyway, the whole idea is so ridiculous because the idea that eating what you want makes you a man is just nuts. I mean, it ties together this whole idea of like virility with consuming meat and eating fatty foods and all that. And it makes it look like, to eat anything that's remotely healthy is like quote unquote pussy or whatever.
Exactly.
And the thing is that go ahead, eat all that cholesterol laden food, eat all the stuff with the fat in it. The blood supply to your weenie will be clogged with cholesterol, and we'll see how much of a man you are when you can't get it up.
Exactly.
So you've got to shrivel.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
I know.
It's such a ridiculous notion, and I just don't know how people don't strangle other people. Like, if I were in Leanne's position, someone came to a bookstore and asked me for that, I would just be like...
I know. Could anyone be proud of that? Why is it a great thing to die early of heart disease? It's so... The whole notion of all that stuff is so selfish.
It is.
I mean, it really is, because, if it were only hurting that one person, fine,
Sure.
but it's not.
Well,
it's increasing the healthcare costs in this country.
Sure.
When everybody's unhealthy because they eat whatever they want. And like Leanne said, it's, innocent eating, all these innocent creatures
Yeah,
to suit
absolutely.
his appetite just because that's what he wants to eat, and he wants to eat whatever the hell he wants. And it hurts a lot more people.
Yeah, it
and
does.
beings.
And animals. So I think the whole thing is just nuts. And it's also, I think, really tied into this whole idea of, in this whole idea of hedonism, like, fuck it, fuck the future, fuck it all. I'm going to do whatever I want right now. And now's the time I'm going to do it. And now's what I got to do.
Exactly.
And so I just think it's all tied into that idea, like, all right, I'm going to be a hedonist. But what good does that do? It's like,
right.
you can be a hedonist, but you pay you can be a hedonist in the short term, but you pay in the long term for that.
You do.
In very severe ways.
I know. And he probably drives a Hummer, too.
What's wrong with that?
They're great vehicles, right?
Hey, I don't know. Great vehicles for driving over Priuses.
Hey, Bob and Jenna. This is Lisa, the vegan chef that called a couple of days ago about the soup that's occasionally vegan. That's a soup place. I was calling back because there was a couple things I wanted to talk about quickly and one question that's burning in my mind. The first comment I have is, why the hell is vegetarian foods like Morningstar Farms veggie burgers not vegan? Why? Okay, that's just stupid. Second thing is that I'm supposed to be out partying with a bunch of friends tonight, Saturday nights. There's a big event, and I was supposed to go. And I didn't go because I'm depressed for the animals that are, like, hurting, and I'm just, that's stupid, I guess. But I can't go out, and I have nothing to say to all my friends except for, like, go vegan. I'm, like, so impassioned about that right now. I don't know. And my question to you guys is my boyfriend's been vegetarian about a year, and the only reason he's been vegetarian for a year is because I never once said anything to him about going vegetarian. Like, he would have totally, like, rebelled had I done that. So I never said a word. He did it on his own. But now I want him to go vegan. I want him to go all the way. And he did it for health reasons, so trying to get him to do the animal rights thing and seeing that, it's sort of a stretch because if you try to preach to him or whatever, he just won't hear it. So I was wondering if you or any other listeners has, like, a really, really passive way of, like, getting someone you love to go vegan. I'm not really good at being passive. I'm definitely more aggressive in that way, and I find myself preaching to people at my cafe whenever anybody will listen. And so that's my question. How do you get someone who's a rebel against anything you tell them to do to go vegan? Thanks so much, and love the podcast.
Well, thanks. Let's answer the last question first.
Okay.
I don't think you can get anyone who doesn't want to do something to do it.
No, nor should you.
I agree. I completely agree. I mean, I think I think if you're doing that in your relationship with someone, I think that in a lot of ways that amounts to a form of emotional blackmail.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing research on this whole notion of change and how people change and when they want to change.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm interested in that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like how do you get people to change a behavior that they've had for 20, 30, 40, 50 years?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I read basically says, look, people won't change unless they're in a position where they're ready to change. And I know, me personally, you mentioned a person who's rebellious about everything. I hate being told what to do. I hate it. Just ask Jenna.
Uh-huh.
I hate being told what to do. I hate the implication that I'm being told what to do. I hate any of that. I can't stand it. And I need to make decisions that are intrinsically right for me, at times that are right for me. And if people try to force me into things that I don't want to be forced into, I will rebel. I will fight and kick and scream and be a huge pain in the ass. So what is my point? My point is that it is not that you should not try to get your boyfriend to think about it. My point is that you have to be thoughtful about doing that. And I also think that pushing people and being extremely preachy and being the vegan-angelical turns people off more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the reason I think that is because it's a world of limited time and resources. You only have so much time, you only have so many resources, you only have so much energy to go and to preach to people in a cafe or to preach to people anywhere or to be, I don't know, to be a vegan-angelical like that. I don't think it accomplishes as much as living your life happily and trying to get the people around you to understand why it is that you're doing what you're doing. And when they ask you questions, explain to them why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, is a much better way to advertise for veganism and a much better way to educate people about veganism, because you have switched it from, I'm lecturing you about what you're doing wrong, to you're coming to me on your own terms when you're ready to come to me.
Exactly.
And I think that that's the difference that has to play out.
Exactly. And I think I would venture to guess that a large percentage of ex-vegans went vegan for the wrong reasons.
I think so too.
And a lot of it, I mean, a lot of ex-vegans are ex-vegans because they didn't do it right nutritionally and they felt like shit. But a lot of them, end up going, well, I went vegan because my boyfriend was vegan, and they didn't really think about why. They didn't really understand why. They just did it because, and then they become ex-vegans.
Yes. There will come a day when I wave my hanky in a bon voyage to all the fucking nut jobs in the animal rights movement, and I leave all this stuff behind, right? There will come a day. Right. But, and I don't know when that day could be next week, that day could be in 60 years. I don't know when that day will be, right? But there will come a day when I walk away from a lot of this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I understand, but I can't, there's no way in which I can imagine, and I have imagined myself very richly doing that on a number of occasions, right? But there are times that I think about that. There never is a time I think I'm going to walk away from veganism, because that to me is a value that is deep inside of myself, right? And I think as an ethical vegan, I can't see myself walking away from that, just like I can't see myself walking away from my commitment to not living as a racist. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
yeah.
And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, I agree with you that a lot of people go vegan for the wrong reasons, and I think that's why it's easy for them to walk away from it.
Exactly. But, I mean, if your boyfriend, starts thinking about it on his own, if he wants to learn about it, great. But you cannot force him to think about something he doesn't want to think about. I
agree. And I also want to talk about another, the other thing you mentioned at the beginning of your voicemail, and I don't want to offend. I mean, that's not my intent, isn't to offend you. But I'm just going to level with you, because I don't know how else to do it. And this is the way I am, and I always alienate people when I level with them. But I just feel like I have to. It's not about you. Like, it really isn't about you. I mean, being a martyr does no good. You know, the fact that you're sitting home and you feel like you I mean, get down off the cross, we need the wood. You know, it's just like one of these things where I feel like a lot of people who are caught up in it, who are in the animal rights movement, are caught up in this notion that they are the martyrs for some reason. They know they are taking on all the pain of the animals. They're taking all the pain of making this quote unquote sacrifice of being vegan and all this sort of stuff. And I think that I understand that because it's painful, right? 9 or 10 billion animals a year are dying just in this country alone.
Yeah.
Not, before I get the critique, not to mention all of the sea creatures that are also being consumed. There are a lot of animals being killed, but I think that is dire and that is really fucking depressing and it is horrible. But on the other hand, it's like you don't really do any good for yourself. You don't really do any good for that cause if you're so upset that you can't function. You know what I mean? And I think I think that's a little self-indulgent.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is not at all healthy. Not at all healthy for you, not at all healthy for the animals.
I don't think it is. And I think, I also think that it creates, again, this notion that, wow, if you're going to be a vegan, you have to sit around all the time and mourn the loss of the animals and be separate from everyone and live this life that is somehow monastic. And I just don't think that's useful. I think, you know what? If you feel upset about it, channel that energy. Mm-hmm. Anger can be really useful. Upset can be really useful if you channel it. If you turn it inward and you use it against yourself and you feel depressed, that ultimately results in this feelings of helplessness. I mean, and it doesn't do a whole lot for you or for the movement or for the cause you want to promote. So there's plenty to be upset about. There's plenty to be depressed about. But really, I just, a lot of it strikes me as self-indulgent. I mean, I'm just going to level. That's where I think it is. So I think that if you want to do something that's helpful, feel bad, but use that feeling to generate some kind of awareness, or use that feeling to do some form of activism. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I agree.
Am I being too cruel?
Well, no, not too cruel. I mean, it is hard to level with people like that because we don't want to be mean to this person. This person genuinely cares about the animals, and I understand that, and I understand how people can get incredibly depressed.
I do too.
But recognize that. Okay, you got to get out there in the world. If you do want to change things, you got to get out there in the world and be happy and be that vegan, that healthy vegan that, you're hanging out with your friends and showing you can have a social life.
That's right.
Because, even if you're vegan.
I think so too.
I think that's important.
I think it is too. And I also, I also think the inclination towards martyrdom is a big one in our movement. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that needs to be really guarded against, because we're not the martyrs. I mean, we're not the ones that are having the hard go of it necessarily, and I think this also ties into veganism. Like, a lot of people think, wow, I'm making such a sacrifice for the animals. Not really, I mean, like, it shouldn't be, it's not really a sacrificial kind of thing. It's like,
no,
you're doing to live right in the world.
Exactly. I'm not sacrificing anything.
Yeah.
People always say, well, I want to eat whatever I want. Well, I am eating whatever I want.
That's right.
I just don't want to eat meat, dairy, eggs, etc.
So I think that this is the thing about veganism, though. It isn't a negative thing.
Right.
Veganism is a positive commitment. It's a commitment to living in the world in the way that you want to see the world develop. Mm-hmm. It isn't this negative kind of like, man, I'm vegan and what a wonderful thing for me to do, and wow, I have to give up so much. And I'm not saying that our caller is saying that, but I've heard people kind of have that rationale, like, wow, this is what I have to do. This is really heavy. I'm giving up pizza. I'm giving up cheese. Man, so hard. And I have such a commitment for the animals. And it's like, you know what? No. It's like, I'm glad you're going vegan, but I think that that's the wrong way to approach it. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way to approach it is like, fuck yeah, I'm making this decision. Yeah. This is how I'm going to live in the world. This is what I think is right. That is wrong.
Exactly.
And so, but I think this whole notion of martyrdom and this whole notion of like getting caught up in feeling so bad that you can't go somewhere, that to me is a little too indulgent of the self, and not, I don't think, I don't know, maybe I'm not being clear. I don't want to offend the caller. I don't want to be too critical of the caller, even though I am being critical of Lisa. That's not my intent, but I just also think that it's important that we have positive ways of thinking about these things rather than negative ways.
Right.
And that we channel the energy that we feel. I mean, I sound like a hippie, but dude, I sound like a new ager. Get those crystals out, brother. But I really do think it is about channeling the energy and doing healthy things with the frustration, doing healthy things with the anger.
It is. And
shit.
And I understand that because, I mean, I have my woe is me moments. Whoa! Amy got caught up in the cables there. She often stands perilously close to the power supply. Oh, no. Anyway. No, I mean, I understand how easy it is to get caught up in the oh, woe is me moments.
Yeah.
Because I do that with a whole bunch of different things. Like, I start getting mired down in these little things that happen. I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for myself. And then I snap myself out of it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the hell is wrong with me? Okay, yeah, it's a little problem. All right.
But sometimes
it's hard to snap out of those moments, but I realize, like, whoa. The hell?
But there's a lot in the world to feel bad about. Let's be honest about it. There's a lot in the world that's wrong, and it's perfectly rational reaction to have a sense of despair about a lot of it.
It really is, and it's easy to fall, into that spiral of despair. It really is.
I think it very much is. So
we're just trying to snap you out of that and get you out in the world.
Yeah, and I hope I haven't offended you because that's not my intention. But please try to take it in the way that. Kind of a friendly criticism,
Mm-hmm.
I just think there are healthy ways to approach this and unhealthy ways to approach it, and I think kind of inwardly focusing a lot of that energy and feeling like you're in a place where you're so depressed you can't go out. I think that's an unhealthy way to deal with what is a real problem.
Yeah.
So that's my primary concern.
We want you to be happy.
We want you to be happy, and we're done. I'm done ranting. Let's go to the voicemail, closing, theme, the outro, this thing.
267-295-1944. Write the number down on your refrigerator door. Add the 001 country code if you call us from Vienna. That's how you leave a voicemail for good old Bob and Jenna.
Okay, so next up on the show we have an interview that we did with Mark Love, and as we will talk about in a second here, it's important to note that Mark will be on the show again at some point probably, so if you have questions for him, get in touch with us. But give this a listen, tell us what you think. He's going to come on and give you some tips for kind of getting in shape if you're not in shape, what it's like to be a vegan in the fitness industry. What else did we talk about? We talked about spandex and genitalia. We talked about a bunch of different things, so that should entice you to listen to the whole thing if you are hesitant. But anyway, give it a listen, and we'll be back after the interview. Well, today we are joined by Mark Love. Mark Love has trained approximately 1,000 individuals of both sexes from ages 9 to 81. He's helped clients achieve general fitness goals, get back into top shape post-pregnancy, recover strength after battles with cancer, and has trained a world champion athlete. He's helped numerous clients continue to recover strength and conditioning in a post-surgical rehab setting. He has worked in gyms, private homes, personal training studios, and in sports settings for nearly 10 years, designing and supervising over 12,000 workouts in the last 5 years alone. He currently works in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, and we were hoping to get Mark on the show just kind of to talk every so often about fitness questions you might have or issues or ideas. And, I just thought it'd be great fun to have you on. So welcome to the show, Mark.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Jenna. Thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you on here.
Yeah. So I guess they could be to kind of start off with the first time you're going to be on the show, and I hope we can have you back again to answer questions and just general kind of fitness advice. But I think one of the first things we can begin with is this question of a lot of people out there who recognize that they want to get into shape, they want to get started with a program of exercise, but they can't quite get their butts off the couch, or they can't quite figure out where to begin. They can't get the motivation, or there's just something kind of in the way. Do you have any kind of general advice to folks like that?
Yeah, I have. It took me a long time to figure this out, but I've kind of come to the conclusion that a lot of people, they're of the opinion that everybody who is exercising just loves it. That's the reason they're doing it. And so they tend to look for this magical kind of motivation out there somewhere. And the fitness industry, unfortunately, has taken advantage of this in not such great ways. In a lot of ways, it's tried to make exercise just entertainment. And sometimes that hasn't worked out very well because it's had people doing things that aren't good for them, aren't safe, things like that. And then other people end up getting someone to help them, either through a book or a video or a personal trainer, for which I'm thankful because I wear sneakers to work. But these are kind of the different ways that it usually goes. But if a person's really looking for motivation, and I was just talking to someone about this morning, ironically, instead of making exercise the end in itself and then trying to make it a fun kind of thing, I mean, it's important that you enjoy it to some extent. You can't totally dread it, but instead of trying to make it an end in itself, think about the things that are important in your life and make exercise a means to them. For some people, it is taking care of their health. Maybe they're diabetic, and exercise is an important part of controlling their diabetes or heart conditions or things like that. For some people, they want to be able to keep up with their kids or their grandkids, and so they need to stay healthy and active and have at least some level of fitness in order to do that. For other people, they're into certain sports, so their training kind of becomes their sport at the same time. It could be any number of reasons like that, but I think the really important thing is that a person is to take some time to think about themselves and think about what it is that's most important to them. And then when they're trying to talk themselves into exercising, or they've had a really hard day at work and it's about 34 degrees out and rainy and they would really rather just not drive to the gym or maybe go out and run on a cold day or whatever, they can think of the thing that they're doing it for. And that is going to make them a lot more likely to exercise rather than just thinking of the activity. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, a number of years ago, as some of the listeners to the show will probably remember, I had this, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and that was after a long time of me not really taking care of myself in terms of exercise, in terms of stress management, and just in terms of basic self-care. And one of the things that, I mean, I've exercised throughout my entire life. I was an endurance athlete in college, so I had some experience with that. But one of the things that I figured after that was I had been putting off exercise in favor of other things in my life, my career, writing, all kinds of other things. And what I realized at that point, and I just really thought of this when you were talking, is that I had to, from that moment on, look at exercise as a form of medicine in a sense, as something I had to do if I was going to be a healthy person and if I was going to be healthy enough to continue to do the kinds of things I want to do in my life. And so at first it was very painful. I mean, I was 30 or 40 pounds overweight. I didn't want to get out and exercise. I didn't want to go running. It was a pain. But I realized, look, if I'm going to be anywhere and do the kinds of things I want to do, I got to do this. And now I actually love it. But at the time it was very painful to do. So, you know.
That's a good point you bring up about it being painful at first. If you can stick with anything for a month, and sometimes it takes the entire month of just grinding your way through it and almost literally every time forcing your way to do it, after that, usually you started to feel better. If things have been hurting or kind of stiff all the time and everything, back and knees and things like that, because you haven't been very active or you've been pretty much sedentary, you can kind of grind your way through that first 30 days or so. At least your body doesn't protest as much anymore. So at least it's not quite like pushing the stone uphill so much, and you sort of tend to develop some momentum, especially if you can make it part of your routine and kind of carve out a place in your schedule for it and build things around it. And then then it just becomes part of your week or part of your day, whatever you do there.
But you know, I think, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to go for it.
I thought of one other person while you were talking. A person I had trained a while ago. She had instead of putting off her exercise for her career or anything like that, she had done it when she had children. And she came into the gym one day and she was in tears already and really on the verge of a lot more. And she said, I don't know what to do, because she was constantly having problems sticking not really to a diet, but just eating even healthy. And she was sometimes exercising and then stopping for a couple of weeks and things like this. And she brought in this picture of herself before she'd had any of her kids. And she was in terrific shape then. And it was like in Mexico or something like this. She was on a vacation and she's wearing a swimsuit. And she's like, I remember when I used to be like that and I was fun and happy and I had energy all the time. And now I'm just everything's just terrible. And she said, I have these kids and I love them and I can't chase them around or do anything with them or anything like that. So we talked about it for a little while, and then finally the idea popped in my head. I said to her, it may not be realistic to expect to go exactly back to the way you were beforehand, because a lot of times bodies change after pregnancies and things like that. I said, but if you can at least get back in the neighborhood, that could be your motivator. So I said, do you have more pictures like this? And she said, yeah, I do. I said, well, why don't you put them all over the place, all the places that you look at every day? And she immediately caught on to the idea that this would be something that would motivate her. So she put a picture up on the bathroom mirror, and she put one on the refrigerator, which then reminded her to make healthier choices when she ate, which actually then had a ripple effect. She started making healthier choices for what she fed her kids. And she put it up in her cubicle at work, on her sun visor in her car, and it wasn't totally about looks for her. It was just about her getting back to being a person that she really liked being a lot more, that she hadn't been in a while. And she had a couple of more fits and starts, so to speak, but then it finally took root, and she got actually very close back to the kind of shape that she'd been in beforehand, and before she had kids, and she was very happy about it and so forth. So it's the same kind of thing. Whatever it is that's your particular motivator, put reminders of it up in different places, wherever you're going to see those things, and that's going to remind you that out of all the other really important things that are going on in your life that make you really busy every day, this is also important too. In other words, you're also important because you want to be able to keep yourself healthy enough to keep doing all the other things you like doing.
What a fantastic idea. And I know another thing I guess I would like for you to talk about if you're into it would be the idea of intensity. I mean, I have a kind of inclination that some people think in order to get started exercising, it requires running marathons or Olympic weightlifting or other kinds of crazy intense efforts. But I think for someone who's sedentary, I mean, where could they begin, and does it really require the kind of intensity that a lot of people imagine it requires?
It doesn't really require it, and if a person's been sedentary for a long time, and they may have gained a fair amount of weight, they may have just not done really much with their bodies for a while. This sometimes happens. I've had people where it's literally been decades that they just once they got out of college, they sort of just took the next couple of decades off, so to speak. And so in that case, it's really probably not a good idea to get very intense. The first thing to do, and you read this recommendation everywhere, but you read it because it's really necessary, is go see your doctor. There's a lot of people I have known over the years who went to see their doctor because they wanted to get started exercising and found things that they needed to pay some attention to that they wouldn't have found otherwise, or they might have found out in a really bad way. So that's the first thing to do. And then after that, if you haven't been doing anything, then just getting maybe after dinner or maybe when you come home from work or in the morning, whatever's a convenient time for you, just start walking a little bit. If you just start with something as simple as 10 minutes out of your day, something like that, just to get you moving and it's important physically, but it's also important psychologically because now you're telling yourself that you're actually making steps toward this goal of yours. Even if you haven't really made it explicit, you have this sort of vague goal to start with that I want to be healthier, I want to be in better shape, I want to feel better, and now you're actually doing something about it. If you're actually doing something about it, then that must mean you're worth doing something about it for, and that sort of starts the ball rolling, like I say, physically as well as psychologically. And then from there, you might get a bike, you might do some nice, especially if you've got a relatively flat area in your neighborhood or something like that, ride a bike a little bit, grab a friend who's maybe in a similar situation or maybe slightly more active than you so that they'll challenge you a little bit and do this together. In terms of intensity, the style that I train people in, which is primarily strength training, is high-intensity training, where we work really hard but for short workouts. And it works really well for most of the people I train because it keeps the amount of time that they have to be working out to a minimum. But even then, unless that person was in really good physical condition when I met them, I very gradually break them into that. And at the beginning, they always say, oh, my goodness, this was a lot easier than I thought it would be, and I'm not really sore and things like that. And I say, well, that's the idea because, one, your body's not really ready for it, and two, you don't want the first experience you have when you finally start doing this after whatever length of time to be negative and you can hardly move and you hate every time you have to get up and move because everything hurts and sore and all that. So take your time. If you have been letting things go for months or years or more, taking another month to gradually break yourself into it isn't going to make a big difference over the grand scheme of things. Take a long-term view toward it and realize that the gradual kind of ramping up of the intensity that you do is going to be much more worth it down the road, because you're going to be much more likely to stick with your habits and not start a couple of weeks into it, say, this is way too hard, I hate it, and chuck the whole thing.
Yeah, I see that as one of the major frustrations, and I've had this frustration in the past too. That I wanted to be fit immediately, and and then you tend to push yourself too hard too soon, and then you're just like you said, you're just sore and grumpy. And so I like what you said about it's important to remember that it took a while for you to get out of shape, so it takes a while to get back into it. And just stick with it.
I had a client who was getting very frustrated with me because we had been training for about 3 months, and he'd made a little bit of progress, but nothing crazy like that, and he had a very similar mindset to what you just described. And he came in one day and asked me if we could go into the trainer's office in this gym I used to work in, and really started in on me. He's like, why haven't I seen more results, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he was a really sort of wound up type A personality. And I was a little afraid to say this, but finally I just kind of fell back into a corner. So I said, let me ask you a question. How long did you spend getting out of shape? And he got a really weird expression on his face and just stopped and looked at me for a second. And he goes, all right, I see your point. 30 years. I said, yeah, maybe 3 months might not be quite enough time to completely undo 30 years. Yeah. And after that, he really relaxed toward it. And then he started having a much better time with his workouts, and then started making much better progress. He was much more regular with what he was doing and everything. It's really easy that if you haven't been doing it for a long time, all of a sudden the frustration catches up with you all at once, which is why you finally get started again. And like you say, you tend to want to have it happen all yesterday. But that's when it gets really easy to get hurt, too, because you've got joints especially that have not been used to running or pushing the bike up hills or lifting heavy weights or whatever, a combination of those things. And all of a sudden you're trying to force it to do that, and it's not ready for it. And then the next thing you know, you're off to the doctor, and now you start the cycle all over again, except on top of not exercising, your brain's made a really strong connection between exercising and you being in pain. So take it easy and just step by step get your way there.
Excellent points. I have a kind of a different, a little bit of a tangent question, or maybe if you can reflect on it. I don't know if you have any ideas or not, but a lot of people I've met, both in the animal rights movement and in other kind of quote-unquote lefty movements, I think they tend to view exercise as somehow this like fascist preoccupation. Like, if I go out and exercise, that's like
showering.
Now you're talking about the anarchists, huh?
Oh, sorry.
Like, well, I'm an anarchist. I don't like to call myself an anarchist anymore, but I shower. No, but like almost as if, if I go out and exercise every day, that's like Mussolini running the trains on time, or I don't know. There's just like there seems to be this kind of preoccupation with exercise as somehow this like fascist or conservative regime, or taking care of yourself as somehow like a fascist or conservative regime. Have you noticed that too?
Yeah, and I think there's a couple reasons for it, and I actually, at first, I just didn't understand it at all, but I think there are at least two reasons that I can come up with, which actually come from a good motivation. A lot of times it feels like it's an indulgent thing to do, and it's taking time away from the stuff that's really important.
Yeah.
And so, why would I spend time, especially if it's indoors? Why do I spend time running in place on a treadmill when I could be out trying to convince people to go vegan, or convincing people to animal rescue, or whatever type of activism that person's doing? And then another thing is that people see the really narcissistic side of it, the person that spends hours in the gym staring at themselves in the mirror and that sort of thing, and that's a big turnoff, which is totally understandable to me.
They're flexing their muscles and going, come to the gun show, baby! Yeah?
Yeah, doing their Arnold impression. don't I look so beautiful today? That kind of thing. But I think, really, that's just one more variation on what we were talking about earlier. I think we've all heard people say that, the world's not going vegan in my lifetime or anytime soon, or words to that effect. And if you believe that, then by extension, logically, you have to figure that, okay, this means then that I'm going to be an activist in this for a long, long time, maybe my whole life. Well, if you want to be able to continue doing this for years and decades and fighting the good fight, so to speak, then you're going to need to keep yourself at least reasonably healthy, reasonably fit so that you can do things physically, but also a lot of times if a person doesn't look after themselves physically and isn't really continually renewing themselves that way, the body breaks down with time. That's just part of aging, and it tends to bring with it a lot more aches and pains. And when you're in pain all the time, that's really distracting mentally too. It's hard. It takes away energy, and it takes away your attention, and it makes it really hard to pay attention to things that are important to you. So, to me, that can be one more thing that, just like your kids or an activity you like or any of those other things we talked about earlier, you're keeping yourself to at least some reasonable level of fitness and health so that you have enough resources within you to keep paying attention to the causes or activism or whatever way you prefer to phrase it that's really important to you. And then in terms of the other, where it's such a narcissistic thing, just because it is for someone else doesn't mean it has to be for you. That doesn't have to be your motivation. You don't have to pay any attention to that at all. Just because some people treat the gym like a fashion show and have spandex pants in 37 different colors doesn't mean that that's the way you have to dress. You can go in there in old, really comfortable T-shirt and a pair of sweats and put on your iPod and do your thing. You don't need to pay attention to anybody else. And their reasons or motives or the way they flaunt things or whatever doesn't have to have anything to do with you at all.
But what if the spandex makes your package look good?
Well, then that might be an important psychological motivator. And who knows, it might help you to veganize someone else that you meet at the
gym. You never know.
That's true. Speaking of veganizing people, geez. I have to gain some maturity, I swear.
I tried my best to bring it back to a useful place.
Anyway, yes, speaking of being vegan, you're a vegan, you've been a vegan for a number of years now, and you work in an industry that goes through a lot of different kinds of cycles in terms of diet fads and in terms of the essential aspects of protein or carb. I mean, look, in the 80s when I was doing a lot of training, it was carbo loading. Now it's like the muscle powders and the energy drinks and all of this crap. What is it like to be a vegan in the fitness industry? What kind of reactions do you get from clients and colleagues and things like that?
I've kind of experienced the full range of reaction to it. For the first few months I was vegan, I felt like I was really busy still learning things as simple as reading labels on boxes and things like that. So I didn't spend a lot of time talking about it because I didn't feel I was even going to be able to be remotely authoritative or accurate. So I was pretty quiet about it for a while. I didn't say anything to anybody. And really, if I had chosen to just keep going that way, it almost never comes up, except when people start to ask for nutrition advice. And then you find yourself in a conflict because I can't speak for anybody else, but I can't tell someone that, oh yeah, chicken's a great source of protein. That doesn't really work so hot anymore. So that's when it comes down, for me, just sort of knowing the individuals that I'm working with. And every situation ends up being different. People will ask for nutrition advice, and there are some people who I know that I can mention the health benefits of being vegan with. I can't talk too much about the other aspects very often because you never know what the reaction is going to be, and as tough a spot as it is, sometimes I still have to make sure that I make enough money to eat and live and so forth. So I tread carefully, but if it's the kind of person who I am pretty sure is going to get upset by me saying anything, then I just fall back on, Well, the state of Pennsylvania says that I have to be a registered dietitian to give you nutrition advice, and I'm not one of those. So here's the card of somebody I know. And so I've used that a couple times to sort of avoid what would have been really unpleasant, unproductive conversations. In a couple other cases, I talked to people, told them why I'm doing what I'm doing and what the health benefits have been from there. And yes, I know that it's bad to talk about the health benefits of veganism, and that's a bad motivation.
It's bad.
I'm being sarcastic.
Oh.
Bad motivation, and it doesn't work. It might not be the way to stay vegan, but I have been successfully able to talk to 2 clients about why I'm vegan and the health benefits of it, and it opened the door to both of them becoming vegan, and they both stayed vegan. And they kind of did the exact same thing I did. They were interested in it from a health aspect first, and then got interested in the rest of it later. So it opened the door from that. In terms of protein and things like that, I tell people that protein requirements are usually overstated. And the reason they're usually overstated comes straight from the field that I work in, because it comes actually straight out of bodybuilding, where they wanted to sell protein powders after they'd sold everyone barbell sets. So I said, people that are telling you that you need that much protein usually have an interest in selling you that much protein. And then we'll go from there. And usually by that point, most people's attention spans have turned back to which muscle is burning on the machine that we're on. So the conversation ends there. But it just really depends on the person. I don't know if that's the greatest answer in the world, what you were looking for, but
I think that's how it is in general. I mean, it depends on the person, right?
Yeah, it just depends on the person. But it's worked twice so far in an area of the world that's really pretty conservative and materialistic, and they tend to all brag to each other about which breeder they got their dog from. So to have any inroad at all, it makes me pretty happy.
Excellent.
Do you ever get people who are completely shocked that you were vegan and able to, walk a few feet without falling over from famine?
Yeah, because I'm like 5'11", and I usually hover around 190 or so, a few pounds either way. And most people, when they think of a vegan, if they have any image at all, it's this really emaciated kind of person who doesn't have very much energy, who, like you say, can't walk more than a few feet. And immediately the reaction is every time, you don't look vegan. How can you ride a bike that much if you're vegan? How do you work out? What do you do for your protein? And then what do you have to just eat tofu all day? And, all of the questions that we've all gotten in other aspects, except they're amplified now because no one could possibly exercise and not eat an animal. So, but it's worked for a couple of other people that they've eliminated some animal products and then sort of stalled. And so then I just look for an opportunity to bring it up again at some point or another. But that's usually the way the conversation goes. Some variation on either me discerning that I can plant a seed in their minds, or me realizing that I better get out of this really quickly.
Excellent. Is there anything else you want to add, or any other words of advice, or any other kinds of gems of knowledge that you want to put out there until the next time you're on?
No, I mean, there's a billion things we could talk about, but like you had said, we talk from time to time. So I think that covers pretty good everything we mentioned today. Cool. Any other questions you guys have?
No, I think we're pretty good. I'm really grateful that you were able to come on the show, and I'm hoping that we can get some folks to get out there, get off their butts, do some work, just get out and do something. Because I've just noticed that a lot of people, I think a lot of people want to do it, but don't really know how to begin. And I think you've given them wonderful advice today on how to do that.
Yeah, I think what you say, just getting out and doing something, just moving your body around feels better than not moving it around all the time. Think about, like, if you've had a cold and you've been in bed for a couple of days, how stiff you are when you get up and you finally start moving and nothing really wants to move and it's really tight and all of that. When you get around, just getting your body moving on a regular basis, you just feel better. And it doesn't ever have to be about any kind of body fat percentage or fitting into a certain size or any of those things that tend to be really off-putting to a lot of people, especially people who are thinking beyond just the surface of things. It doesn't have to be about any of those things at all. just moving begets movement with bodies. They're a lot like machines where if you just leave them sit and oil dries up and lubrication dries up and so forth, they don't really move very well anymore. And bodies are very, very similar. Unless you go way, way, way to the other extreme and overtrain yourself, bodies thrive on movement. And you feel better, and it can tend to influence brain chemistry for the better and all of those things. So even if you have nothing else in mind, if you just want to feel a little better every day, just do something a little bit more than what you've been doing. Just get out of the chair, get away from the computer for a little bit.
Excellent advice.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. So if people want to get in touch with you, should they just send us questions and we can forward them to you? Is that the best way to do it?
Yeah, or if they're on the forums, send me a private message or whatever.
All right, excellent.
Great. Thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks once again to Mark. And I think that, it's really important to keep all these things in mind, keeping yourself well, keeping yourself healthy. And he's so right. When you start to move, you think it's going to make you more tired,
yeah.
but it actually gives you more energy because you're moving your muscles, even just walking.
Getting outside and moving around
makes you
brilliant.
feel better. This kind of goes with the theme that we were talking about in the first part of the show.
Absolutely. And I feel a lot better. And I also think this is that voicemail we had previously is an excellent one to talk about, because I think part of being a healthy activist is being a healthy person.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically.
Uh-huh.
So, and Mark talked about that. Like, you have to maintain yourself so you can maintain yourself for the cause too. So
exactly.
I think it's really vital. So that was Mark. If you have a question for him, get in touch with us. That's it for this week. We'll be back again with Show 100.
Show 100.
I don't know. We'll be back again next time at some point in the future. Hopefully not too far off. If you want to get in touch with the show at veganfreakradio.com.